Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on November 5th, 2022 at approximately 9:36 a.m. PST. Well, I got looking at it and I'm thinking, how is it that we can actually bring our energy levels up? Now, this came to mind the other day, within the last week. I took a couple of days out and redid cleared the clutter, cleared the disarray, if you will, out of the entire house from front to back. Now, when you're looking at life, the first thing you have to realize is you're the one in control of it, and we're all in literally the same boat. Okay, every one of us, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter how you got to where you are. And now we're going to deal with vertigo. This is always fun. Doesn't matter where you're coming from, how you got there, you're all in exactly the same boat. Okay. Now, with that in mind, it is absolutely imperative that you realize that you personally are the one that has control over where your life is heading, over how you're going to get where you're getting. And the trick to it is take a look in the mirror and go, am I content with my life? Am I happy with the way things are going for me right now? Okay. Now, people quite regularly when I'm talking to them get very stuck in the situation they're dealing with. Okay. And that situation, the situation they get stuck in is you're in a path, you're on a track that has been the same way time and again. Okay. Now, being 59 years old myself, been around for a bit. Not near as long as some of the other people I've seen. So before I get into it, I desire to point one thing out. The two most wasted commodities in existence that I'm aware of is the wisdom of the seniors and the enthusiasm of the youngsters. Okay. Now, my hope is that by talking to you about this, it will give you some sort of motivation where you can take your life and put it back on the track you desire it to be on. Now, how do you go about doing that? Well, I will tell you, the first step in the whole thing is accepting the fact that you actually do have this capacity. Now, do understand, I returned to this world at this time for one primary purpose, and that is to remind everyone in existence that working together, we can make this a better world for most people. Okay. The reality is, you're going to have to be the one that does it for you. Now, how do you go about that? The world is full of problems, full of complications that we're looking at. And virtually, not everybody, but what shows up on social media, what shows up on the news is all of the negative stuff there. Well, not all of it, but it is primarily negative stuff. So how do you go about changing that? Well, we start with the obvious issue. Now, the funny part about this, well, it's not really funny. I'll keep doing that. This particular book contains the backbone. Okay. And, if you go to my website, rkeithandrews.com, you'll find the information on the book on how to go about getting it. I am, in all fairness, going to have an Amazon store up pretty quick. But with all of this negativity going on, how do you look past it and get online, and get on track? Well, the easiest trick in the book is quite seriously, and this is going to sound odd, but quite seriously, put a smile on your face. Doesn't matter whether you feel like it. Okay. Whether you feel like smiling or not is not the relevant point. And rest assured, don't take my word for it. Okay. But see what happens to the way you're treated by other people if you've got a smile on your face. Even if you're saying something they may not otherwise like. Okay. But that smile, and everybody does it the same way. Good morning, football. Glad you made it. Hope your day is going well. I decided I had the time today, so I was going to come on track here. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We don't get to all the questions. Like last night on Spaced Out Radio, we didn't get to all the questions that I was hoping to. But this is why I say, when I'm live, if you've got questions, even if they're not on the topic that I'm working with, okay, absolutely ask. And I will certainly do my best. Okay, well, this is why I brought it up. I know many of them aren't, and some are ignored, some are avoided because of the way the things went. But if you want to put your question there, football, I'll be happy to to do what I can to answer it. The reality of it from my standpoint is when we're looking at life. Now, I had my whole place all a mess a little while ago. And of course, I had the apartment inspection to avoid things. Good morning, YJ. Glad you got here. Yeah, one step ahead of you. Managed to get my coffee in place first. Okay. That is that. Now, I'm going to give you that in a two-part answer. Okay, number one, is a soulmate real? The answer is definitively yes. Okay, soulmates are real. And the way they come about is a little complicated. Can you have more than one? The answer is absolutely not. Okay, a soulmate is literally the other half of your soul. And when both you and your soulmate passes away, okay, and goes into a non-corporeal form, the two of you at that point combine to become a higher entity. Okay, you can have twin flames. You can have. There is certainly more than one member of your soul family. Okay, but you only actually have one soulmate. Okay, now that said, there are multiple opportunities to have a life mate. Now, a life mate is simply the person you choose to spend the rest of your life with. Let's see if this has come up online, because it's so much easier for me if it has. And of course not. Why would that work? But a soulmate, you can have more than one life mate. Okay, but a life mate is simply the person you are choosing to spend the rest of your corporeal life with, or at least until the emotional connection goes. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. But the soulmate itself, you only have one. Okay, and that one combines. That is actually what you're looking for all the way through your lifetimes. And bear in mind, a soulmate may not be another physical person. It may not be another, human that you're dealing with. I've seen soulmates where it actually turns out the human, their soulmate, was a pet. Okay. In one very, very rare situation, I ran into a situation where the soulmate was actually somebody's plant. All of these things have souls. Okay, but the nice part about it, when you're dealing with the whole 9 yards, is a soulmate is the way that you complete yourself, as it were. Okay. I hope that makes sense to you. Yeah, that was a nice timing there, YJ, regarding the show last night. Oh, that's not a problem at all, football. The reality is I do appreciate the apology, but I pick a topic to start with, not because of the fact that that's where I'm staying. I prefer, in all fairness, that I deal with questions coming in. My problem, the reason I keep leaning forward, is the writing on this monitor is not good, and I still haven't figured out how to bring it up on track properly so that I can actually see it on this screen properly. But hey, sooner or later that'll click in. I thought I had it, but I was apparently mistaken. So I watch this until it pops up at some point. And who knows when that's going to be. But no, I certainly don't mind the distraction. The reason that I start with that. We have those? Sorry, I failed on social etiquette. I was told years ago that if you're in a conversation and the conversation drifts away from you, it's impolite to walk away without saying goodbye to the party that was there that you were with in the first place. And I looked at the person that told me. I said, why? Well, it's rude. I said, why? They stop talking to me. They'll figure out I'm not there when they turn to talk to me. And then they can come and track me down. Apparently, this is not socially correct. Oh, well, I got over it. Don't get me wrong. I do my best to remain polite with people. The neat part about the whole situation from my end is when you turn around, when you start to smile, when you actually put a smile on your face, even when you're having a rough day, even when your world seems upside down. Okay. Now, yes, if you're not used to smiling, it may feel uncomfortable. It may feel odd. Force the smile if you have to. People there looking at you, they may look at you and go, oh, that's a fake smile. It doesn't matter. The difference is what happens is this, in a mechanical standpoint. And, the nice part about it is I actually put this whole thing in this book at the same time. I think it's actually the first chapter. I think. So I'm just going to flip through this and just double check because. Yep. Yeah. Giving yourself a facelift. I put it in this. There's a number of other steps in that as well. But, the reality of it is, from my standpoint, as soon as you put a smile on your face, a couple of things happen. Number one, I'm lazy. If my memory is correct, it takes something like seven muscles to smile and somewhere in the neighborhood of 49 to frown. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm lazy, so smiling's easier. Now, of course, if you just have a deadpan face, it takes even less effort. But what smiling also does is it releases chemicals in your brain that are perfectly natural. And in all fairness, I forget the name of the chemical, and it doesn't really matter. That simple act of smiling will help you feel better. Good afternoon, Nathan. Actually, I think it's good morning or something like that. Well, here it's good morning, but it's afternoon somewhere. Glad you could join us. The second you start smiling, even if you don't feel like it, that physical act kicks the chemicals into gear and helps you feel a little better. Now, when you couple that with taking really high-paced dance music, as high as you can get it, as fast-paced as you can get it, crank it as high as socially acceptable, you'll find those two things combined really help fight depression. Actually, never mind, fight. Really helps conquer depression. This is the same thing that goes hand in hand with getting the excess clutter out of your house. Get the energy running smoothly, get a smile on your face, get the dance music running. You'll find your energy climbs, your social adjustment works out well. You're able to tolerate other people more readily. Okay. And all in all, it's going to drive your metabolism up. Net result, because your energy is now running high, you'll actually burn more you'll think more, and you'll think more clearly. And subsequently, it will help you burn off the excess weight. And yeah, I know this all sounds way too easy. Everybody talks about, oh, take a pill because that'll help. Yeah, not really. Not my eyes. Thing you got to remember about weight loss and smiling is this. Yes, you can take a pill, and I will not argue it can help you drop, 20, 30 pounds, whatever they talk about. I don't argue the point you may do that, but you got to remember, everything that's going out of your system doesn't magically disappear. It has to go through the organs in your body, and if you're dropping it that fast, you're putting a staggering strain on your kidney, on your livers, on your liver, on your bowels, the whole 9 yards. Okay. However, if you smile and you get the dance music running, what you'll find is your energy goes up. You'll start to think more clearly. Net result, and yes, thinking does burn calories. From everything I've come across, thinking a lot burns calories. Okay, but these are methods that take a while to drop. Okay, and you may hit a plateau. I mean, right now, I've been bouncing between 200, 202 and 210 for the last 4 or 5 months. It's annoying, but hey, what the heck? But what you'll find happen is that your energy level will climb. You'll be able to move. Good morning, Philip. Glad you got here. I do my best to get there, but, sadly, Philip, the reason I haven't said I absolutely will be here in the morning is because my schedule gets absolutely bizarre. This week, I was like, I have told people I'm reclusive, right? This week, I haven't left the house at all, including to take the garbage out, since Monday morning. Okay, so we're talking 6 days I haven't been out of the house to do anything. I'm quite content with it. In case you hadn't noticed, it really doesn't bother me that much. Yes, that we do. And they are getting more and more bizarre. The odd part about it there, Philip, is I've seen this whole pattern before. Of course, I remember past lives. And this same thing happened about 1,600 years ago, where people were doing the exact same thing without the technology that we've got today, obviously. Okay. But people were treating each other like garbage. They were so caught up in the material world and in the me thing that society eventually buckled. Okay. We're talking about the fall of the Roman Empire. Now, it didn't happen overnight, and the course we're on right now isn't set to happen overnight either. Okay. But I will tell you, doing things like there's this neat idea that, get the money for free. Do as little as you can and get paid. This is a common theme right about now from what I've seen. But I will tell you, and I've heard it from people that have experienced it. Okay. Yes, it's great to get money handed to you. It takes the stress off of things. Absolutely. However, in my opinion, given the option between getting a handout or working to get something done, okay, still making the same amount of money, I'll tell you, I would rather work and get something accomplished. Ultimately, when it comes to what I'm doing, most of the information I talk about, I do put in other books. And here's a neat little piece for you directly, Football, because of the fact of the question you asked a little earlier, where it came to soulmates. Now, I started writing these novels. Okay. I've talked about these multiple times, but this is what my life really sorts itself around. With these novels, okay, with the Yldrbac Chronicles. Okay, in the Chronicles, I cover all of these things. Now, the one coming out now ties off a trilogy, but the one I'm aiming at to have out next year, which is where it all began, I go into a complete breakdown of how soulmates actually come about, where they started, why they started, what their purpose is, and how to go about working with it. Okay, all of that gets covered. I touch on all of the same stuff I'm talking about here. Okay, the same stuff I talk about on Spaced Out Radio it's all inclusive, it all intertwines. And again, it's the same thing about this issue about smiling. Smiling and laughter is so much more, it is contagious. Emotions are contagious. This is just the reality of it. Don't have to take my word for it. For pity's sakes, don't take my word for it. Go out and experience it. Absolutely there, Philip. The one thing that people don't realize, and we're walking into exactly the same path. Back at the time the Roman Empire fell, everything was getting complicated and what have you. The one thing that people tend to overlook is they put all their reliance on their finances in the bank. They went in, they took loans out to get things, the whole 9 yards. Okay. And then the banks closed the door and pulled all of the money away from everybody, the government included. And this is the other thing that really capitalized, it really complicated and, if you will, aggravated the failing civilization in the first place. When the banks pulled the plug on the money, all of a sudden, society just buckled. Okay, now, people keep talking about overthrowing government. I'm not happy. Now wander around, complaining about what's going on and doing absolutely nothing to change their own life. Many people, you guys, in all likelihood, are doing your level best to change things. Okay, but we have to make a commitment to ourselves to say, look, I'm not content. So, do I walk around with a smile on my face all the time? Clearly not. Okay. Mind you, in all fairness, there's a lot of reasons for that. On the plus side, though, this is the other thing that smile does, is it keeps, with it keeping your energy up and running, it helps keep your health in check, in place as well. And I mean, that's not bad. Like I said, I'm lazy. So when we're talking about something that takes, I'm just going to see if it pops up here. Just because I'm curious. I'm just going to type into the computer here, how many muscles to smile. Yes, I'm only using one hand, but that's kind of the way it works. Oh, okay. How many muscles to smile? I'm just looking up right now. Takes 43 muscles to smile. Okay. And how many muscles does it take? If you want a fake smile now, here's a real lazy way of doing it. Apparently it takes 43 muscles to smile. And it takes 2 to fake a smile. Just 2. Okay. Now, if we go back just a fraction, this is something that 5 years ago, there is no way I would have been able to do any of it. Okay. How many muscles to smile? Bring that up. Oh, there we are. Now, here's another one that said, I asked, does it really take more muscles to frown? Okay, and this one says it takes. Okay, the information on the net is absolutely useless. And the reason I say that, and this is what you got to remember with the net. Okay, I know, now I cannot tell you for certain, not by the net, Because on the one hand, it says, on one article, it says 43 muscles to smile, right? And the other one says 43 muscles to frown and only 17 to smile. Which is, what do you go with? From my standpoint, I go with this. Because I'm not going to count the muscles myself. Okay, I'm just not that interested in it. But I will tell you this. When you smile, and just try it for yourself. See how many people will talk to you if you smile, as compared to if you see somebody frowning. How many people approach the person that's frowning, staring at the ground, shuffling along on their way? And I don't mean senior citizens that just don't have the strength to walk faster. I'm talking about the people that are looking depressed. Now, myself, I do my best not to frown. Smiling just kind of happens when it does. But the important thing that you got to remember from your end, okay, is that when you're looking at the, I appreciate that football. Oh, now this is absolutely fantastic. Give yourself a huge pat on the back. Okay, I am so glad to hear, I'm so happy for you that has worked. Okay, and I'll tell you, I'm sure you found it out already. Where it comes to your finances, bring them under control, and again, you're going to find your stress level collapse. I love that quote there, Philip. It's on something else, I think, like what Philip has just written. Is when you see someone without a smile, give them yours. That was stated by Dolly Parton. The other side of it, from my standpoint, is when you look at smiling as a gift, it is the only gift that costs no money to give. You can give it to everybody, and nobody complains it's the same thing. It's also the only gift in existence that I'm aware of that when you give it to somebody and they give it back to you, nobody complains about it. Yeah, that one was my big one. I spent 40, 50, 60 years as a professional pack rat. And we had our apartment inspection because of the fire we had in the apartment block just a couple of months back. They passed the owner said, okay, if we've got pack rats that are being moved. Of course, I can understand his point. He lost 3 apartments. Didn't lose the building, but he lost 3 apartments because of a fire that took place in a pack rat's house, in a pack rat's apartment. Now, I used to be absolutely comfortable with every square inch of my house full. I used to live in what amounts to a warehouse. Okay. Now, people talk about, I'm fighting when you fight depression. I used to fight depression, then gave up on the fight and just went fully into depression, didn't fight it anymore. But people talk about, I'm going to, I drink because I'm depressed, because it helps me cope. No, it doesn't. Alcohol, again, all alcohol does, aside from screw up your coordination, is it ends up knocking out your trained and learned inhibitors, aka it knocks out your coping mechanisms. Not a great setup. Okay, now, where is? There's my box. Now I'm going to do something here. I just want to take a look at something if I remember correctly. Whoop, get that out of the way. Yeah. Now these books that I'm pulling out here. Okay, when we're talking about clutter, these are books that are absolutely, at this point, they're non-productive. Okay, so I'm going to be getting rid of them because I'm just not going to have the time to pull it apart piece by piece. These books are literally on astrology. Okay. Now, I've been hanging on to them for years, but the thing about it, the reason I'm getting rid of them is because I will not have the time to go through them. This one I sort of have to keep because this one is an ephemeris. It doesn't have any calculations in it that I need to worry about. But these extra ones, I'm just not going to be rewriting it. And that's a little sidetrack for you. What were those two? The ephemerae I'll hang on to. The rest of it will go. Because I just don't require it anymore. But here's the thing. Okay. Yes, I get sidetracked on occasion. Oddly enough, gee, I wish that would actually kick in. Somebody can ever figure out how that works, let me know. Getting my own thing to show up. Because at this point, it really doesn't. Oh, there we go. Finally. What are we into it? Half an hour and now it shows up? That's neat. The reason I wanted what you're seeing up on my other monitor is so I can actually read the messages. Yeah, and that's the thing there, Philip. There are two types of people that clutter. Okay, I mean and there's three really, but a pack rat is someone that has clutter, that has a whole pile of stuff, but it's sanitary. Okay, a hoarder hangs on to actual physical garbage. Now, football. When we talk about bad spirits nesting in clutter, bad spirits, in all fairness, don't require the clutter. But the clutter does slow down your energy level. It does slow down the speed with which you process, and thereby makes it easier for the negative energies to build up. Okay, think of, if you will, if you think of a river, okay, where it's moving really quickly, you never see pollution gather on it. If it's moving slowly, you'll see you'll see pollution gather on it. You'll see the scum form on top of it. That sounds really gross, but it's true. The slower the energy moves, the more restricted and the more depressed the energy gets. Net result, because you're no longer moving quickly, the negative energies and the annoying spirits can absolutely get a hold of you easier. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why clearing the clutter out of the way works. Okay, but I absolutely agree with you there, Blair, that the real kicker to it is the sanitation. Okay. Well, here's the thing. Okay, what you're looking at there, Blair. What you're looking at, what we look at is this. And being somebody that actually suffers from PTSD and fought depression most of my life, I can tell you this. Okay, the clutter itself doesn't come from it. Okay, but when you're talking about clinical depression, I love it. Wait for somebody else to tell you you're depressed. There's a good idea. Okay, but the clutter, because of the fact you're not moving, the energy slows down. Now, I know myself, my energy was running really low. Okay, but I emptied a storage unit and just hadn't gotten around to getting rid of the junk. Now, the neat part with PTSD, never, ever, ever misconstrue that PTSD is an excuse. If you've ever seen somebody that actually suffers from true PTSD, it's not a question of it stops them from moving forward. It stops them from moving. Okay, I remember when I was about 12 years old, I was going through a grocery store. Now, I lived on a military base. And a gentleman, there was a gentleman in the store. Somebody on the other side of the aisle dropped a pickle jar. Okay, and all of a sudden, this full-grown adult, he was a military, and hats off to the military. I've always had a lot of support for them. But this guy, the bottle hit the ground, and this guy tried getting underneath the shelf. Okay, he went into absolute full panic. And he's just thrashing, he's hiding his head, trying to get into as small a ball as possible. Now, how I managed to figure out what I was supposed to do, I don't know for certain. What I do know is he was screaming at the top of his lungs, and I went straight to him. Okay, and just talked to him until I could get him calm enough to just put my hand on his shoulder and help bring him out. But the clerks that came around the corner, I just simply waved them off. Thankfully, they backed off. PTSD is something that is not to joke about. Okay, I met one person that told me, oh, I've got PTSD. That's why I have these problems. I'm looking at her going, you don't have PTSD. Okay, well, she happened to be, and she kept saying, well, that's what I was diagnosed with. I said, I don't really care. Okay, what you were diagnosed with, I won't argue that point. Okay, well, yeah, and in all fairness, I look at it where it comes to the diagnosables. That's a nice word. I like that. That's kind of like purpleizing something. But, I dealt with this guy and I waved off the clerks, and thankfully they left us alone. So I got him calmed down, got him back into the real world. And I mean, hats off to him. He came out of it and finally went about his day. Okay. But suffering from PTSD myself, trying to come out of the hospital when we found out about it. Okay. About 50 yards from the elevator to the exit of the lounge, to the exit of the door. Took me with the help of 7 people trying to keep me calm. Okay, and thankfully they were all really good about the idea of not forcing me to go anywhere. They waited. It took us 45 minutes to walk out of the hospital, and then about another hour after that to get back in balance. Okay, but again, now I can sit here at this point, I can look at it and go, yep, that was a rush, that was a pain, but at least I don't go into panic anymore talking about it. I used to not be able to say a word about it, about what actually caused it. Okay, but don't kid yourself. Lots of people, the massive majority of people that I've come across that claim to have PTSD or that have been diagnosed with it actually have anxiety. And more often than not, that is because of the fact that they're empathic. Which, by the way, everyone I've ever seen born is empathic. Every individual that is living today is empathic. The problem is that as we get older, as in around the age of 4, between 4 and 6, we're taught, you're told, oh, you've got a wonderful imagination, now grow up. Okay, and they start dealing with the fact of, oh, that person doesn't deal with crowds, so we'll take them away from the crowds. That doesn't work to help you deal with it. Okay, it really doesn't. But what you have to realize is that where it comes to this whole idea of putting a smile on your face, it has so many extra, additional impacts on you. Okay. When I hit, I know when I looked in the mirror, when I was 246 pounds, I looked in the mirror and went, that is just wrong. Now, I don't have anything against people's weight. In all fairness, I don't have anything against people on the whole. No, I don't get along with them. I hide from them for a reason. Which is why right now I'm in I'm in a really good mood, in my opinion. Okay. I don't have a big problem at this point. And the reason for that, well, let's face it. Well, I've got a lot of big problems. But I haven't left the house since Monday morning. Okay, even to put garbage out, but then I don't create a lot of garbage in my house. Staggering amount of recycling, but not a lot of garbage. Okay. And, the thing that we have to remember here is when I'm talking about depression, I'm talking about smiling for humans. Do understand, plants smile, animals smile. Every species I've ever encountered, they all have the same response. If you're happy, you smile. If you're sad, you frown, or you may cry. Okay, if you're hurt, tears is normal. Now, of course, I have seen people when you hurt them, they laugh about it, which to me is a little weird, but what the heck? Okay, but yes, Dogman smiles as well. I don't know a lot about Dogman, but I do know. You want to see something funny? Take a look at some of the reptilians or the shadow walkers, and watch when they smile. Bit disturbing on occasion, but plants smile, fish smile. It's not always a facial feature, by the way. Sometimes you can tell somebody's smiling because of all the time, if they're smiling, you can tell because of the energy. Okay. But everyone I've ever run into, even the deceased, when they're happy, they smile. When they're sad, they frown. Okay. This is one of those massive. Yes, they really do. Actually, the funny thing there, football, there was an experiment done, I guess, about 35 years ago now, down in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Okay, they took three rooms full of plants. All of the plants were the same. Okay, same species, and they had the same lighting, the same watering, and the same fertilization routine. Now, the control room, all the people did was went in, the workers went in, watered them and what have you that they had to. Okay. They went in, watered them for whatever they had to, and then turned around and left. That was in the control room. In a second room, they had people going in and screaming at each other, playing real loud, angry music, arguing all the time, basically being absolutely miserable. They had fights going on in a room. The plants withered and died. Okay, the third room is the real critical one, because that's the one where the people went in, had really peaceful music, talked lovingly to the plants and each other, had wonderful experiences together. The plants flourished. Now, this tells you that the plants are reacting to emotions. What people overlook is Earth is a plant. Earth is an organism of its own. And she reacts to negative energy as well. Okay. And that is true. The funny thing is, people that, Philip, you just said, they will find people, and they will find belonging amongst people of a similar life path. This is why I say the churches and what have you. Absolutely, if you want to go to church, go right ahead. Okay, life does require that support structure. Okay, and by the way, you are correct there, Philip, that sometimes people say I've got PTSD because it gets people's attention. And sometimes that's all it is I require help and don't know how to deal with it. Okay, which is why when people ask me a question, I will do my best to actually, to answer the question as far as I can. Okay, now, don't ask me how to build a car. Okay, this is just a bad idea. Well, I'll tell you how to build a car. If you want to build a car, talk to somebody that knows how. I'm not the one. Okay. But that whole issue, when we take a look at the plant scenario, you'll notice, and you know yourself, I'm sure of it, when you're smiling, this is because you feel better. Well, because humans are fully empathic when they're born, okay, you're that way right from the get-go. When you smile, you give off this energy of, I'm happy. this will rub off on other people. Not necessarily everyone by any functional stretch. Okay, because some people are so caught up in, I just want to be mad. And it literally boils down to that. Terry Clark, she's a country singer. And she wrote a song called I Just Want to Be Mad. Great catchy tune. But some people are like that. But again, this is why we take a look at the whole idea of how do you get your life moving in the direction you desire it to move in? Okay. Well, the way you do that is by deciding that I'm no longer content. Okay. Where we are on the 5th. See, whenever you decide you're going to do something, right? The real, the reality behind it, when you're looking at doing anything, changing your life at all, and this includes smiling. I mean, just try this one for example. Okay, you're sitting there on your own with friends, whatever. Okay, you're sitting there, however your face is. Put a smile on your face. Now, in all fairness, if you don't feel like smiling, that's okay. Force the thing. Okay, if you can't force it, here's the one I like to suggest to people. If you can't even bring yourself to force a smile, grab some makeup and paint the thing on your face. Yes, you'll get weird looks from people. Okay, and as long as you're not around one specific type of person, you'll be fine. I got a friend that he absolutely hates clowns. So, of course, if you paint a smile on your face, that could cause a problem. But on the whole, there's always exceptions to everything. Okay. On the whole, if you cannot bring yourself to smile for whatever reason, just paint one on your face. It will still help you feel better. Okay. Now, the nice part about it is smiling doesn't cost a plug nickel unless you're using makeup to do it. Okay. But if you're just smiling, okay, all that is control over your muscles. Well, you got to do that to move your arms. You got to do that to walk. Smiling is just a way that literally helps bring your energy up, brings your self-esteem up, improves your communication levels. Okay, and does oddly enough help with weight dropping. And you'll notice I said weight dropping. I gave up on the whole idea of weight loss years ago. And here's why. When you talk about losing something, okay, everybody that I know of that has gone through the idea of I'm going to lose weight. Well, the problem with losing it is people, when they lose something, is you go back and almost instinctively try and find it again. Okay. Problem with weight is when you lose it and you find it again, usually it seems to come back with company. When you drop weight or you discard weight, and yes, it boils down to a mental game with yourself. Okay. The weight goes off and it stays off. I swore when I hit 246, I would never break that barrier. Okay. Net result, I ended up at one point down to 202. Haven't broken the 200 mark yet, so still fighting with that. For the last 5 or 6 months, I've been bouncing between 202 and 208. Nope, 209. The worst I got was 209 too. Okay. But I got it in my head that I am going to get rid of it. I'm going to drop the extra weight, and that's just the way that's going to be. But it boils down to looking in the mirror and going, I'm no longer content with the way my life is going. It has to change, and it's got to change now. And the clutter in my life was exactly the same way. Now, by the way, when we're dealing with clutter, we are not always dealing with material stuff. Okay. You know, I do want to. I'm going to go back to this one thing here. You know, Philip, when you mentioned that the clutter caused by depression or PTSD it doesn't require cleaning; it requires healing. I'm going to mildly correct that, or more to the point, add to it. Even if you're suffering from PTSD or depression, I will tell you, depression works easier this way. Clear the clutter out of the way; it will start the healing process of the depression. They are actually intertwined. And I've mentioned on multiple occasions that I've mentioned on multiple occasions that everything is interconnected. It's all cross-linked. Okay. And this is why it's not a question of one little step. Okay. When I mentioned the issue of a few weeks ago, I think now, I was asked what my long range goal is. Long range, and Lord knows if I'll pull the money together to do it. But long range is to build a true healing center. Okay. And when I mean healing, I do not mean a hospital where you break an arm, you go in and they fix it. I'm talking about getting people to think effectively, to help bring their own sense of self up, to find ways of educating them to do the things they desire to do that they are physically capable of doing. You know, I mean, I talk to people that are physically challenged quite regularly, and they'll say, I hate being used as an inspiration. Okay, and I'm like, take a look at it. I had a client that came to me. She was 51. When she was in high school, she decided she desired to be a doctor, and she didn't make it she didn't get there. I'll tell you why, Jay. I tried yard sales; it didn't work for me, so now I just give it away. I just can't be bothered with the organization of it. But the reality of it is, I had a client years ago, and she was rather upset with herself. Here she was, 51 years old, and she had not become a doctor. I said, look, you're not dead. You can still do it. Now, understand, at the time, becoming doctor took 7 years. Right. So I says, granted, by the time we get you there, frankly, you're not going to be a doctor for very many years before you hit retirement age. But you can still do it. So I worked with her for about a year on her self-doubt, on her depression, what have you. And I turned around, and when she turned 52, she entered medical school. Okay. I worked with her for the next 7 years after that as well, until one day she phones me up, happier than all get out. At 60 years old, she got her MD. Okay. Now, the neat part about it, I agree with you, and we'll get to that in a second there, Philip. Like I told her, she says, oh, I finally managed to do it. I got my MD. I says, fantastic. Way to go. I says, but she says, I'm exhausted. I says, yeah, but think of how much help you gave others. She goes, I was stuck in class. How did that help? I says, at 52 years old, you started following a path the kids that were literally less than half your age were doing. You kept up with it, and you graduated with that same class. That is phenomenal inspiration. Now, if what I'm doing can inspire somebody, anybody, to straighten their life out and have a better life as a side effect, I'm all for it. Do I consider myself anything special? Frankly, no. Okay. Now, Philip, you mentioned here a little earlier this idea of I wish that physical education was real physical education. I absolutely agree with you. Okay. When I was in high school, I had one teacher that actually, when he said, we're going to run 2 miles, I had one teacher in all my years of school that would go, we're going to run 2 miles. And he'd take off in front of the class. Now, the funny part about him was he'd run the 2 miles backwards. So he could keep encouraging the kids. Come on. Right. That same teacher is the one that taught me how to stretch and how to work with my own muscles because I couldn't take phys ed. Okay. But he taught me how muscles work and what the side effects are in order to be able to function. Okay. You know, yeah, unfortunately, the education system is, in my opinion, failing. Okay. The number of kids that are coming out with physical education, with any sort of degree, don't seem to know the basics. Okay. They're taught, here's what you tell and what you tell others. The kids coming out of they're graduating cannot do basic math. They can't do basic reading. This is what we're calling education. Personally, I call it indoctrination, but I'm just a little twisted that way. And yes, by the way, I did actually, in fact, graduate. You know, they diagnosed me mentally retarded, so I graduated on the honor roll. Yeah, you know, and that's just it. At least the thing was, and I played dodgeball as well. Actually, in all fairness, yeah, in elementary school, I did play dodgeball. Then at age 12, I tore my leg apart, and that just ruined PE altogether. But what needs to be, what people have to start realizing, and this is what I said at the beginning of this feed. Okay, the two most commonly wasted commodities in the world today, or in any world for that matter, is the wisdom of the seniors and the enthusiasm of the youngsters. Now, people some people have looked at me and gone, "Oh, you're a senior." I got my first senior's discount when I was 45. Okay, because I was already heavily on the gray side. Of course, the person asked me, she looks at me and looks at my kid and goes, "So one child, one senior?" I went, "I can work with it." 10 years before my birth certificate actually said I was a senior. No, actually, in all fairness, yeah. I was 45. You could start getting discounts at 55 at that time. I don't know what it is now. What I do know is that when you put a smile on your face, your energy level comes up. You'll feel better about you. And this is why I've got this sign over my shoulder here that says, "I am worth it." I keep that one all over my house. Well, all over. I've got it right there where you see it. I've got the wooden sign in my office here, which is right below. And then I've got one on my fridge door and one on my front door coming in. All in all, when you're looking at the way your life is, ask yourself, are you content with your life as it is? If the answer is yes, this is fantastic. If not, the tools that I actually talk about are the ones I personally put to use. Okay, they are the ones that I go out of my way. These are the ones I use to get my life organized. And this is how I know they work. The only thing I've ever guaranteed to anybody is I will not lie to make you feel better. Okay, it's just not going to happen. That is just absolutely sad there, Philip. But it does show where people's attention has gone. And ironically enough, the people that really need to turn this mess around, I fully admit it's my generation. The people in their late 50s, early 60s, that absolutely fumbled the ball completely on education, on society, on the whole 9 yards. Okay, sadly, it's you guys coming up behind us that have to straighten this mess out. Okay, which is why I'm doing what I can at this point. And in all fairness, it was a lot of pushing from people on spaced out radio for me to start actually coming online. Now it's just a normal thing from my end. I just haven't got a schedule that I can say this is when I'm going to do it. If and when I ever get around to retiring, that may change. The schedule thing. I'm not planning on closing this down anytime soon. Okay. But I will tell you, it's not just me that's got to make the alterations. So many people I talk to, I'll talk to somebody and it's like, oh, I'm so depressed. I'm so unhappy. I'll look at them and go, so put a smile on your face. I don't feel like smiling. Fine, put a smile on your face anyway. It will help. And don't take my word for it. Come right out and do it. Okay, just experience it and see how well that works. It will not, in all likelihood, be an overnight change. Okay, change does take time. You've got to work up to it. Okay. Yeah, the reality is there is a reason. Like sports do have a reason. Okay, sports, if they're taught properly, will teach you teamwork. Okay, they will teach you, hopefully they teach you sportsmanship. Unfortunately, what I've seen in most of the sports, and this is why I don't watch it. Sportsmanship is one of those things that they don't teach very well. Okay, and some of the, I always get a kick out of it. Every now and again, because my son does like hockey, he'll watch the hockey game. And I'm sitting there watching, and they go, this guy got tagged for puck interference. I'm like, how can you have puck interference in a hockey game? Yes, I'm Canadian, but this does not mean I enjoy hockey. Okay. I'm sitting there looking at him going, how can you possibly get dinged for puck interference? That's the name of the game. Get the puck somewhere that isn't in the net. Okay. It's phenomenal, some of the rules that are out there. I'm sitting there going, that doesn't make any practical sense. I understand some of them. Okay. Because they are a health issue. I remember one day when I was still married, my ex-wife, at the time, of course, my wife, we're sitting on the couch together, and she's watching the football game. And I made two mistakes that day. On the one hand, she's sitting on, I know if you watch football, many of you have football, hockey, whatever. Okay, many of you do this. You'll sit on the couch, and my wife is sitting there, and she's screaming at the TV. Right. Now, she watches just about any sport available. I've never seen her watch a dart game, though. But she's screaming at the TV. And I made the mistake. I looked at her and I says, does that actually help? Right. Well, needless to say, she was not too terribly happy with me. And so she turns around and she goes, can't you at least pretend to enjoy hockey? To enjoy hockey and sports? I looked at her and I said, certainly. I said, understand, I already know enough to realize when you take that tiny little ball and you you take that tiny little white ball and you smack it with that 3-foot stick, okay, and you drive it over the ice and across the net, and you get it into that basket thingy on the wall. It's called 15 love or something. Well, I'll tell you, that just set her off. She was absolutely annoyed. I get a kick out of it. How, as a history teacher, can you be unfamiliar with Mesopotamia? Okay. Mesopotamia was a wonderful time. Bit messy, but what the heck? But when you're looking at things, I take a look at the world and go, okay, I have a choice. I can sit here really depressed, or I can turn around and do something about it. And thus far, things have been a little screwy. But I am a firm believer that working together, we can make this a better life for virtually a better world for virtually everybody. There will be people that are not happy about it. Most of those people you'll find are control freaks. Now, here's the thing with people being absolutely in adamant issue of wanting to be in control of things. It's because they aren't control. Most of the time you run into somebody that is really pushing to control your life, they're not in dominant control of theirs. Okay. If you look back over my earlier videos, and you look at the wall behind me, you'll find that it was a lot more cluttered. I turned around and went, I'm not interested in the clutter anymore. It's going. Okay. So net result, I got rid of it. And that's just the way my life went. Because I turned around and said, I've had enough. It's time to let go. So now what I'm looking at is I'm removing the clutter. A lot of the information I'm dealing with right now that I do talk to you about, okay, it's information that's it's being documented. Not the least of which, and like I said, this neat little book, okay, this one is the backbone of how I changed it. You notice it's a real thick book, okay. So what I did in each chapter was I said, okay, here's the tool, here's why it works, here's the sorts of things that you can expect on a dominant level, and here is one major reason why you don't want to do it at all. Okay, because the way I looked at it was this. If I can pinpoint why you don't want to do it and take that argument out of the equation, maybe, just maybe, you'll have that little bit of extra incentive to get up and do something about it. But that becomes your issue. Okay, I cannot make the changes for you. The healing center I do intend on building. Okay, and this is just one of those important little factors. Yeah, they are. Unfortunately, they're football. Years ago we looked it up and found out where it was. I went, I have no idea because I don't look at the maps. I just go, this is where the problem is. I've seen other events coming in, and I don't get into a lot of them. Okay. The reason being that I've been told, oh, you're a doomsayer. I'm like, you call it doomsaying or a pessimist or a conspiracy theorist. Quite seriously, to the best of my knowledge, anything that I've pointed out for people that the governments of whatever country were up to, okay, on the grand scale, and I don't mean by name because I don't know the names of the leaders. I really don't. I have enough trouble remembering who's in control of Canada and the U.S. Never mind the rest of them. But that's what I get for not watching the news. But if we decide that we are going to focus on the positive side of life and the nice things that are happening, instead of focusing on the negatives, like when we talk since this issue around sports, I have never ever in my life missed pinning down in any sport which team was going to win. Okay, now if there was a winner and a loser, there are games that have turned out as a draw that I didn't get and that I didn't hit. Okay, but any game where there is a definitive winner and loser, I have never once missed pinning down the team that would win. There's never been a case where I haven't done that. Okay, and of course, people ask, well, then why aren't you a millionaire? Why don't you bet on them? And it's very simple. Number one, I don't care. Number two, and this is probably the bigger kick, okay, but the reason I never miss, and I do mean that literally, whenever you're watching a sport that has a definitive point measurement, where there are definitive points that you can track, not things like ice skating or skydiving or whatever. Things that are based on personal expression. No, but ones that have points available, I've never missed. And here's the secret to never missing on another sporting event. Okay, the reason that I never miss is because I know absolutely the team and the winning team will be the one with the highest points. Invariably, this has happened. Okay, teams do not win if they don't have the most points. Okay, now I know that's essentially a cop-out in some people's eyes. But I looked at it and went, that's just the way it is. If you want me to bet on a team, I'll bet that the team with the most points wins. To me, you don't have to beat your opponent by 15 points. There doesn't have to be a 30-point spread. Okay. There just has to be a definitive winner and loser. And again, you notice, like when we start looking at sports, you notice the people that win have a smile on their face. The ones that don't have a frown. There are very few people that go, yeah, I lost. It just doesn't happen much. It does happen periodically. Years ago, I had a client, and she came to me. She says, look, I really need an answer. Of course, understand, I've been doing psychic readings for what? Well, I started when I was 10. Professionally when I was 23. Right? So, I had this client, and they said, look, I've got this problem. I looked at her, I says, 2 months. And she burst into tears and falls into the chair. And I looked at her and I said, I'm terribly sorry about that. She goes, no, it's okay. We know my husband is dying. I just needed to know how much time we had to get things in order. She said, it's okay. I appreciate it. I needed the information. Understand, I was doing spot readings, meaning ask a question, there's the answer. You got like 5 minutes tops. Right. But a week later, I had another client at another event where they came in asking the same question. And I'm looking at this, remembering the last one, going, this is not going to be good news because this guy is dying. I just don't know how to put it. So I fumbled around for a while. And I turned around, I looked at it and went, okay, look, I've got to apologize. Right? I says, I don't know a nice way to put this, but your husband is dying. And I kid you not, in the middle of a crowded hall, 10 active psychics, people all over the place, this woman jumps to her feet and goes, yes! And I'm looking at her going, okay, I give up. I'm just not going to worry about whether or not this is good news or bad news. You figure it out. Obviously, she had a miserable marriage. Yeah, earthquakes are a lot of fun, Blair. I mean, the funny thing is, I was sitting in a bar one day, and earthquakes, they are a bit disconcerting, especially if the building starts falling down. But I will tell you this. Okay, having the warning systems there is absolutely imperative. Okay, I'm a little off on that one because I can feel them coming. But I remember sitting in the bar one day, years ago now, because I haven't sat in a bar, at least not for drinking, in literally decades. But I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I reached over and I grabbed my glass and picked it up. Right. I'm still sitting on my stool. And the glasses that were hanging over the bar start swaying back and forth like this. Right. And everybody's panicking and running all over the place. And the one waitress looks at me and goes, you don't seem agitated. I said, no, it's an earthquake. She goes, well, aren't you worried? And I looked at her and I says, I got my drink in my hand. I don't need to worry about it. And no, I was not that drunk that it didn't matter. It's just I've been in earthquakes. I've been in tropical storms, outside in tropical storms. I've been picked up by a tornado. This sort of thing to me is just plain normal. Okay. Yeah. Dying is easy. I've done it enough times, but I'll tell you, there are ways to go that are much better. Okay. Honestly, oxygen deprivation is one of the best because you just simply go to sleep. It's just that simple. And I don't mean carbon dioxide poisoning. I don't mean being strangled. I mean oxygen deprivation. Okay. Football, best of luck with that. You know, you stand a much higher chance of winning the Powerball than I do. Okay. You know, the reality of it is where it comes to the whole 9 yards. I mean, I looked at a guy. I had a guy pull a gun on me one day, and I just smiled and I looked at him. I said, "What are you gonna do? Kill me again?" And he stops. He looks at his gun. And he goes, "Again?" I said, "Yeah, it's been done before. It didn't take." You know, even that. You know, and I mean, I know this works when we talk about this whole idea of putting a smile on your face. It's absolutely priceless. You can tell somebody just about anything if you're smiling while you're doing it. Doesn't always work. And for pity's sakes, do not deliberately antagonize somebody, even with a smile on your face. It's a bad idea. Karmic law is pretty cut and dried. Energy out, energy in. This means whatever you put your effort into, this is what you're going to draw and what you stack the deck in favor of drawing to you. It doesn't guarantee you'll get it. One suggestion there, football, and actually two. First and foremost, take a look at that word need that you just typed. Instead of using need, replace it with the word desire. Okay. Now, if you go back into one of my former videos, look for the video. It's titled "Language Need." Okay. Either need or want. I'm not sure which one, in all fairness, but it's under language. Listen to that, and it'll explain to you exactly why that works. But here's the thing: when you say "I need something," what you're actually telling the universe is, "I desire to experience a lack of said thing." In this situation, football, you've gone, "I just need a million." Okay. And what that tells the universe is, "Look, I desire to experience a lack of $1 million. This isn't going to work well in your favor, in your eyes, anyway." Well, this is where movies come in handy, there, Philip. That's why I like things like the movies. You know, when you watch Dante's Peak, you know, when you watch Volcano, Earthquake, 10.4. Okay, I was really surprised with 10.4 because the Mary from Little House on the Prairie, and people my age will recognize that name quite well. Turns out she was the star of 10.4. Pleasant little surprise in my eyes. You know, I like what I was told one day. I saw this sign, and the guy, what he does, he says, "You know, I know what's going to be on my tombstone." Well, that didn't quite work out, right? Or, you know, and a variation on that was, "Oops, you shouldn't have done that." You know, I've been involved, like I said, I've been involved personally, not in causing them, but I've lived through, you know, major fires, earthquakes, tornadoes. I've never been on the ocean during a tsunami. Okay, but I have seen the effects. Okay, and personally, they're exciting. Preferably not go through them again. But I will tell you, my throat's starting to seize up here. We're hitting the 2 hour mark. So I'm going to call it a day, but I really, really appreciate you showing up. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. And I will be back again. But until then, take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.